I'm just getting the templates for the pocket. This is the original, and it goes that way, underneath of course. So I've got to cut two pieces of this. This bit is all torn, so I can't use that piece. But basically it's a repeat of this one. The pocket, same as the rear, it has actually vinyl, two pieces of vinyl with padding inside it, and then it has this elastic strip across the top. Now that's what's left of it. This is actually quite hard, so all the elasticity's gone out of it, but it's the right length, so that's all I need. So I've got to now make up or cut out the vinyl for this, two pieces of that, and I'll use this as the template. So I've got enough to make a template. I'll cut two pieces like that. I'll do this, make this piping up with the elastic in the centre. I've got some elastic here, so it's just arrived, so that will be good. And I'll start sewing this piece up, so it shouldn't take too long. You can see that I said this is a very low slung pocket. Actually, you mightn't be able to see that, but the pocket is only this bit here across the top, so it's very shallow on this end. That's where the armrest should go, somewhere in there. All of this is overlap underneath to attach it to the timber, so you don't see that much of the pocket. It doesn't go up like that, it actually probably sits down there. Anyway, I'll start cutting the material out. I've just finished sewing this up. The piping is in the middle, like that. Now I've sewed this in two separate operations, but I'll probably show that in the next door card I do. It's all sewed. I've put actually sewed that three times along there, and mainly the reason for that is to get the piping sort of close to the top there. So that's worked quite well. Now what I've got to do, if I follow the previous one, there are a number of cuts I've got to put in the edge of this so it'll be more flexible. They're about that far apart roughly, so I'll make those cuts and then I'll position it on the door to see where actually I'm going to tack it into place. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem. As I say, that's the finished product, like that. That's the way it'll go on. And inside that I've got to put some padding, just on one. I'll just glue it to one side, glue it to the outer side, and that just provides a nice soft finish to the pocket. It actually swells the vinyl out a little bit, so I've got to do that as well. So a few more things to do. I'll start with the wadding, and I'll go from there. Been working on this pocket for a while, and I thought I might have problems, and the issue is that it's such a large hole that trying to keep the tension correct is a problem. Now on the rears I actually folded these over and then just tacked it in one go, but with this one I really can't do that. I've had to resort to tacking it down the side, pulling it that way, pulling it this way to tension across the hole. If I don't do that, the pocket sags. Now I've done that and I've let that set off, but I've still got to pull this down and provide tension across the bottom. Now when I pull that down, of course it's pulling against the captive piping at the top, so I've got to pull that down. So that's what I'm about to do, pull this down and then tack along there. I've still got to, after this all sets, then pull this down, more tension, and once again glue and tack. Now I've got quite a fair bit of thickness in here now. I'm just debating whether I'll staple this, or seeing I've got so much thickness I may well just use the tacks, because the tacks are about 7mm, the thickness of the timber is about 7mm, and I've probably got at least 3mm or 4mm of vinyl tacked over. So it's getting there, but very slowly. The other thing I was a bit disappointed with, let's turn this over, was the piping in the bottom corners. They were bunched up when I actually put them in, and the reason for that is it's just the shape. The vinyl doesn't flex as much as perhaps material would, so they're bunched up a bit in the corners, and there's very little I can do about it. So a bit disappointing, but I'll just have to leave them. But the pocket is sitting reasonably well at the moment, so I've still got a bit to do along the bottom edge, but it's better than it could have been. Now this pocket is finally finished. Well, certainly the pocket part, the outside. This is the pouch part. So if I just turn that over. So that part's done. What I've now got to do is to put the backing piece in, which is the rear of the pocket. So it's just one piece that tacks over the whole lot of this, and it shouldn't be too hard to put in. But what I've got to do, and I'm going to use tacks rather than staples on this, I'll be tacking it up closer to the opening, so it's actually sealing the pocket off around about here on the inside of the pocket. So I'm just going to be very careful when I'm tacking that around. Make sure I actually don't tack straight through into the opening. But, a little bit of care taken, it should be fine. Still putting the back cover on the pocket. I've started off by gluing the top around there down to the where the actual pocket starts. So that's all been glued. I'd stretched it initially just to make sure that the material was evenly stretched across the whole area, but nothing's been glued here yet. all I've done is do gentle tacks to get them in position. Take that out. So none of that's been glued. So it's been glued down to the area where the pocket starts. What I'll do now is to stretch it down. Having glued the top, it means I can easily stretch that without pulling on the area that I glued on the top. And I intend to use the tacks all the way through. I'll tack these completely in. Now, with the number of layers I've got in here, it should be no problem in terms of running those tacks into or through the material and into the wood. They won't go through the other side. On the top there, not quite the amount of material there, so I may well just staple those ones rather than drive those tacks through. So anyway, I'm about to start gluing this, and then that will finish the pocket area. I've just been checking the fit of the card against the door, and I've actually gently put the screws in. Haven't put that one in there, but the reason for putting it on now is to actually get the holes for the window winder and the door handle. So I've done that. They'll of course need to be widened because to get the door on, it's got to be put on lower and then pushed up, so those holes need to be a little bit elongated to get it on, but that's not a problem. Anyway, I know it now fits, so what I'll be doing is putting this carpet piece in the bottom, and there's an aluminium piece under that. I've just cleaned that up, and I'll just go down to the workshop and start preparing to do that. I've also got to do a bit of edging on the carpet so it doesn't fray with some vinyl, and a few other minor alterations. The first thing that goes in, of course, is the piping, and I've just sewed that up, but what I'm doing at the moment, before I glue it in, I'm just tacking it and positioning it to make sure it was actually the right length. Doesn't matter how many times you measure these things, they don't always end up the correct length. This one I made a little bit oversized from the actual measurement of the opening, and it turns out it's actually exactly the right position when it's finally put in place. So I'll now remove those tacks and then glue that. Once that's glued in place, I'll position this to try and get the right position to screw that in. That will screw to the timber. So I'll position it first and mark the screw holes, and I'll probably screw it in, and then I'll mark exactly where the carpet needs to be glued to that. Now, I've already cut the carpet, but I can't finish that until I've got the exact position where I'm going to glue that onto the aluminium. Now, there's the carpet cut. As I say, I need to work out exactly where it will be fitting onto the aluminium. Obviously it'll go to the bottom, but I need to make sure that when I position it, it's hard to hold the camera and work on this, but when that's glued, it's the edge, the top edge here has to push up under the piping there, so the piping will actually come over that. This edge here, I've still got to put some vinyl on that, but I won't do that until I've positioned, and I'll actually mark on the aluminium where this is to be glued. Once I've done that, then I'll actually put the edging on the bottom of the carpet there. So still a fair bit to do. It's a little bit fiddly like everything else, but spending the time, make sure you get it right. Now, as you can see, I've got the carpet section on the bottom. I'm just trying to fit it onto the door again. The getting it on smoothly around the edges is proving to be a little bit difficult. With all of this stuff on, with this aluminium plate on the back, it's stiffened the card up a bit. And it's making it harder to actually get it to align to the curve of the door. Originally I was relying on the clips up here to hold it in, but it looks like that's not going to be enough. I'm going to have to put additional screws in up about this level on both sides, and that is going to be a little bit difficult because of the padding in behind. As I've said before, trying to drill through that is going to be a problem. I didn't want to have to do that. That's why all of the other holes are pre-prepared and everything's fine, but I'll figure a way of doing it. And as I say, I'm going to need to put a screw up here and one on the other side, just to make it fit with the curve of the door frame. Now, whether I need to do any screws along the bottom, I thought I would, but at the moment the way the door's sitting, it's really because of the curve, it's forcing that into that part of the door frame there, and it's very, very tight. I'll wait till I get these screws in and then see if I need any on the bottom. I still have one to go in there and one to go in there, which should hold it in, and it appears to be very tight at the moment, but I'll wait till I get those top two screws in place. The extra fixings have worked well. It's holding the card in tight, so I'm pleased with that. I haven't put the handles on as with the other doors. Still got to do a little bit of fitting to make sure the cover behind is able to push through the card. So that's the same issue I've got to address on the other doors. This stage I don't need any fixings on the carpet. That's very tight against the door frame, so I'm happy with that. So all that's to be done on this card is to address the little handle that goes on here. Well, not a handle, it's actually this piece. It's got to somehow mount on there. Actually, it may not even be that one. I've got the right armrests in the other workshop, but it's similar to that. The mounting's a bit different, but I've got to before I do that, I've actually got to put a bracket in behind the card that will actually enable the adjustable mount to be put on. So I've got that to do, and that will actually complete that door. Of course, I've got to finish the other door. One door to go. This has taken an awful long time, much more than the rear doors. It's just the bulk of it just makes it a bit hard to to put together, but in the end it fits quite well. I'm quite pleased with that. So getting closer to finishing all the door cards. The interior is starting to pick up a bit with the coverings going on. The two door cards look nice, the red against the burl. So what I'm going to do with those caps, I said I was undecided what I do with those, but I'm inclined just to cover them with the red. So that's the red, and the grey with the wood seems to go quite nice together. So as I say, it's starting to look quite nice inside. These are the actual armrests. That it is a little bit different to the one I just showed. The shape different, and the way it mounts onto the door is different. There's an adjustable piece that goes on the door. You can see how that the bracket with the holes at the back, that's the one that attaches to the door, and then the armrest can slide up and down. It's quite a fancy armrest, so adjustable. That's a pair, obviously of different cars, but they won't matter. This one's, I suppose it's an original cover. It's a bit not as neat as, maybe they're not neat. Not necessarily neat underneath, but just turn that around. So that's the pair that I'll use. I've got to pull those apart and work out how the covers are made, and then put them back on. And I'll probably have to repad those. It's hard to say what the padding is like. I had hoped to actually do at least one of those for this video, but I've been otherwise occupied doing some property maintenance, so it's more important at the moment to do the property maintenance with the upcoming fire season. Over the next 3 months, as well as restoring 2 cars, I've got to spend a lot more time cutting back in the gardens I've got here. Of course, the gardens here, probably including out the front of the house and the rear, probably over half an acre and maybe 3/4 of an acre of gardens. And of course, I also my land also goes into natural bushland, so that's it's coming down the back here. It goes down into the valley, to the bottom of the valley, which is all of those trees you can see on the video. They're all part of what's on my land. Now, the reason I've got to spend a fair bit of time over the next few months is that we've been warned that the bushfire season this year could be a bit of a problem, and the reason for that is over the last few years we've had a lot of unseasonal rain, and the growth has been enormous within both the natural bushland and also within the gardens that I've got here. The time, of course, to thin that out is in winter, leading into spring, but beyond that the temperatures will rise and the risk of fires increase. So what I have to do is get into, initially, in the areas that are all planted out, I've got to get in here and reduce the growth. As I say, it's gone wild. Things have choked plants out and so on. It's also a good time to get into things like wisteria, which is this. It gets out of control and goes up into places where it really shouldn't be, so It's better to get that when there's no leaf matter on the vines, so I can pull it out of the trees and so on. As I say, it has to be done. I'd prefer to be restoring cars, but it's better to prepare the property for the likelihood of fire rather than ignore it. You can see I've already started to thin things out. There's lots of vines and other growth that I've just thrown back onto the lawn, but even with what I've taken out so far, it's nowhere near enough. A lot more to be done. So there's pockets of garden in all sorts of places. There's gardens in here which are all overgrown. I've got to get in there and thin that out. The other thing I'm finding, of course, in the garden sticks out of the trees. This time of year the wind picks up and there's a lot of trees around, of course, and trees both drop leaves. You can see leaves all over the ground, and they drop sticks, so I've got a lot of dead timber to collect all through the gardens. And also those bags there, feed bags, I use those to put all the leaf matter in, so they're all full of leaves. I've got bags all over the yard, and all of this was cleaned up last week, and this week it's all now covered in leaves again. So it's a never-ending problem at this time of year. But anyway, so I still will be restoring. Just I've got to devote time each day to get into the garden and cut things back. So once I've done the garden areas, it's all through up into here. Once I've done the garden areas, I've then got to get down into the bushland areas, which are further down the property. Down, a bit hard to see from here. I'll move to another part where I can get a better view. Right, just walking down through the property. I do actually have paths through the garden, but they're all covered with leaves and so on. These have all got to be cleaned up. So a lot of leaf matter on the garden and on the paths. So I'll try and walk down here without falling over. There are a number of stairs to go down because this is a sloping garden. So all this has got to be cleaned up. All overgrown, unfortunately, but it doesn't take too much to cut some of it back. Other bits are a bit problematic. There is actually a path through there. It's got to be cleaned up. Just keep going down and try not to fall down. Really hard to look at the camera viewfinder and where I'm putting my feet. Okay, still moving down. I have a number of large rock outcrops At least they're things that don't burn, but they gather up leaf litter and sticks all over them. So all of this, from about this level of the property back, is natural bushland. This is all on my property here. Once again, the leaf litter has got to be removed and the sticks have got to be removed, so it's everywhere. Let's get over here. Once again, more sticks, leaves. As I say, all has to be cleaned out before the fire season. Pardon me. I go all the way down there to there's a creek at the bottom, a very small creek. The area that I have to clean basically extends down to the little clearing there. I don't clear any further than that. The land falls away beyond that. There's a bit of a drop off. It's actually a sort of a small, I'll call it a cliff for want of a better word. Drops down about 20 feet. So that's all got to be cleaned. But what I do with this is mainly just clean out the rubbish on the ground. If I leave that there and a fire comes through, that provides so much fuel for the fire that it makes it difficult to stop, because then it'll rage up through the property. So all of the rubbish on the ground is removed, anything that's dead is removed, and just lessens the impact of a fire coming through. Now I have had a fire through here. It came through and basically burnt this whole valley out about 23 years ago. Whilst the fire actually destroyed about 7 houses about 200 metres away from here, we were lucky to survive. It basically burnt all this area out and came up a little bit into the established gardens, not much. And hopefully the reason for that is the way we prepared the property. We cleaned all the, as I say, all the rubbish out from underneath, and it just lessened the impact of the fire. Didn't stop it, but it lessened the impact. So what I do with this area down here, I combine the efforts with my neighbours, and what we do, we all get together and we clean all of this litter out, not only along my property but the properties on either side. So that's something we're organising in the next couple of months. We'll probably get about half a dozen people and go through and just remove all this loose litter. So that's yet to be done. At least I don't have to do all of it on my own, so other people will help. But I certainly have to get into my own established gardens and clean that out, and hopefully be able to get down here and do some of this as well. So that's what I'll be doing over the next few months. Not something you can do in a hurry. It just means that every day you've got to come out here and start moving things because of the amount of area that's got to be covered. Just thought I'd show this area here. All of these plants, succulent plants of course. I'm pretty sure they're called agave. or something like that. And something that's very unusual is to have these flower. They don't flower very often, once again because of the amount of rain we've had. The things have actually started to flower, as I say, unusual. Certainly doesn't happen every year, and happens, in fact this is about the first time I've seen this much growth on this this patch here. It's certainly increased in size, and as I say, the flowers have come on, which is, as I say, quite unusual. But also quite spectacular when they do. Probably can't see that, but there are bees actually going in and out of the small flowers. More leaf litter, more leaf litter. Anyway, that's enough. It's making me depressed, there's so much to do.